Hey guys, it's me, Jennifer Lannis. We were talking the other day about fine hair versus coarse hair. I like using ropes, fine, medium, and coarse. So a fine head of hair, a medium head of hair, and a coarse hair. I like to focus really on the fine and the coarse. So I'm actually going to put the medium hair away and speak directly to that fine hair. Fine hair, as we know, lifts really, really quickly, but it deposits deeper. On that coarse hair, it's going to lift really slowly and then it's going to deposit much lighter. And here's how I like to describe that. I'm just going to turn the camera a little bit so that I can come over here to the flip chart and talk a little bit about that fine, medium, and coarse hair. So if I have a fine strand of hair, a medium strand, and a monster, when we think of those underlying pigments that live in that hair, I like to talk about the color molecules that are inside that fine piece of hair. There's not a lot of them. Versus on the coarse hair, there's a whole bunch of them. Okay. Now, when we go to remove them, obviously because there's not a lot of them, this is going to remove really quickly. Versus this one, this is really coarse and there's going to be a lot more of them that need to come out. Then when we think about how do we deposit into them, how do they look when we deposit? So I'm going to grab my red marker and I'm going to start drawing in my color molecules. Okay, so this one fills up really quickly because there's not much hair there. There's not much to that strand to really hold onto that hair. Then we come over here to the coarse one and we can put the same amount of color molecules in there and it doesn't even fill it up. So that's why this one deposits much lighter. Okay, something else I'd like to talk about is porosity. So I'm going to turn my little camera back over here and talk about porosity of hair. So as we know, porous hair accepts ash and rejects warmth. Healthy hair accepts warmth and rejects ash. So I love using these cups. I saw these out on the road at one of our trainings, and so I made them, and they've gone over extremely well while talking about porosity in class. When the hair is nice and healthy, that cuticle is nice and tight. When it's open, when it's porous, those cuticles are open. So can you see how they open up as we turn that hair? They're made really simply. It's a red Solo cup, and what I do is I take the edge of that red Solo cup and I cut them so that it looks like cuticles. I cut a hole in the center of the cup and I put a rope through. First thing I'll do is I'll knot the first rope, and slide the farthest cup out onto it. Then I put another knot about an inch back and then slipped another cup on it and keep going until you have the length of a cup or length of a hair that you'd like to show. So if I'm doing a large class, I like to do a big one. If I'm using these in salon, I tend to use a much smaller strand of ropes or of cups. So hopefully that helps with that, but it's a great visual. People really, really love it. The other visual that I do a lot of is when talking about underlying pigment, when we get down to the desired tone and talking about that underlying pigment. I like to actually use cups and beads. They're just little beads, and place them in there. Starting with our dark red brown, working through our reds, our oranges, up into our golds, and then our pale yellows. So that's something I think is a really great visual for underlying pigment. And then lastly, I like using these frames. So these are just photo frames that are the mats. And I take two of them and I glue them together with a piece of material in between. I use this to simplify or to signify gray hair. And then I take one that has an opaque coverage, and I speak to gray coverage from a very opaque standpoint. And then I like to speak to it from a more modern standpoint where you can still see some of the highs and lows through that material or through that color. And then if we're looking to just do some nice gray blending, I take a sheer piece of material and I put that in so that you can still see the light and dark, but you can also see that the hair is 100% covered. So this is something that I love to do for that. Hopefully these help when we're looking for our options for our classes. Thanks.